Meeting will come to order, please. Johanna, would you read the statement of compliance, please?
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act for this meeting have been satisfied. A copy of the annual meeting notice was sent to the Press of Atlantic City, Star Ledger, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, the municipal website, and filed in the office of the municipal clerk. Please turn off all cell phones. Welcome to the City of Margate's Capital Workshop meeting for October 15th, 2020. This meeting is being done via teleconferencing in compliance with the Division of Local Government Service Regulations. Before we begin, the procedures for this meeting are as followed. All visitors to the meeting will be muted until public comment on discussed items in the meeting only. Once public comment is in session, all visitors will be unmuted. Please announce your name, address, and wait for the moderator to recognize you before speaking. Each participation session will be 3 minutes in length, and you will be notified at the 10-second mark. When public comment session is complete, all visitors will be muted again.
Thank you, Johanna. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Donna, call the roll, please.
Mayor Becker?
Here.
Commissioner Amadeo?
Here.
Commissioner Blumberg?
For the record, Commissioner Blumberg is out of town with work and doesn't think he'll be here in time for the meeting, so he's excused.
Thank you.
First item for discussion on the agenda, Mr. Dennis, engineering report, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor. All right, heading through the report, starting with item A. Lisa, I did have the job numbers on the report for you.
Perfect, thank you.
It helps you correlate. Item A is the dredging project. So we discussed this at the last meeting. We had some meetings with DOT and DEP. We then had a dredge committee meeting at the end of September, and we are putting together some draft proposals to move ahead with a citywide dredging project and then continue forward with the Shelter Island disposal permitting. Scott, I don't know if you want to add anything on the dredging before. Siri does.
My point is that we do want to have that as a backup. We were invited to participate by the DEP using their dredge hole, which I believe, I was getting mixed up. I think it's dredge hole 90.
86 is the.
They're 86,
Yep.
and we're 90 at Shelter
Correct.
Island. We've come a long way with the attitude change that's evident at the DEP, where they like these ideas of using dredge holes. They've approved the DOT. They're now in charge of dredging for the state. DOT is going to implement 4 separate dredging projects in the county, one of them on Risley Channel, another over in Lakes Bay, several others further north, but in our county. So we're invited. It's something to look at, but we also want to have the alternative to use Shelter Island, which Margate City owns half of. And as we move forward now on this dredging-wide permit, if we get a permit for the entire city, we want to piggyback it so that the individual homeowners will have the right to dredge their docks as well at their cost, not the city's cost. But we get a dredging-wide permit as similar to what Avalon got in Ocean City got in the past. So we're making good progress on it.
Thanks, Scott. So we have the draft proposals are actually sitting on my desk. I just need to go over them. Rich will get those to you with the idea of working that into our budget in the next cycle. Item B is the Ventnor Avenue, Washington Avenue intersection streetscape project. The status hasn't changed here. This project is sitting at Atlantic County. I did talk to the county engineer, actually met with him last week on a number of projects. This was one of them. He was going to double back with his guys and gals to see where they were at with their review. Go ahead.
I've been advised as of today, and I think you may know about it, but we wanted to add, there's a little bit of a storm sewer or sanitary sewer collapsing that we would have to take care of?
Yep.
Could we do that as part of that same project?
Yes, and that came out of the broader discussion of the county's work up and down Ventnor Avenue and wanting to make sure that we took care of any issues at those intersections before they paved. So I did get an email from Frank on that.
All right, and if there's a, significant dollar estimate change as a result of that, if you could let Lisa and I know, we'd appreciate it too.
Will do. Okay, moving ahead, item C is the GIS project. So at the last couple meetings, we've talked about next steps on making sure that we keep this database up to date and fresh. I had a conference call with Roger, myself, Kevin Zielinski from my office, who's the head of our GIS department, Joe Johnston, this week or last week, I can't remember. And the subject of that conference call was the ordinance related to GIS data that we want to require from private applicants who come into the planning board or are doing other work in the city. The challenge was, again, this is all seems well and good until you put pen to paper. We don't want to create more red tape or bureaucracy for people that are coming into town to do work, but at the same time, we don't want to let that data go to waste if it's readily available. So the balance that we are heading towards is to require certain applicants that meet a certain threshold. So for example, a site that exceeds a quarter acre, a site that has to go to DEP for any type of land use permit, a waterfront site, and there was one other threshold that is escaping me. Roger, remember what it was? DEP, whatever it might be. But the point being, these are the types of applications that we usually have this data in the format that we would need anyway. Major site plan, major subdivision. So we're not going to encumber the smaller applications that are coming in for just a knockdown rebuild. But the bigger sites that would already have this data available, where we're heading towards, and we sent a draft ordinance over to Roger, is in the land use completeness process, when they submit their plans, they would also submit it in a digital format. Roger would get that over to us. We would extract out of that whatever data we could use, put it in the database, and we're done. So to keep it simple.
Is that being reviewed by you, Roger, at this point?
Yes, I just got it last night from JJ.
Okay.
So I'll have some comments, maybe no comments.
All right, so just keep Scott in the loop on that.
Yep.
Scott, that's that ordinance we've been talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea was we would work up the technical stuff and then send it to Scott for a review.
I think that I think it's reasonable to assume then, being that you've gotten as far as you have, that we could get an ordinance adopted before the end of the calendar year.
Sure.
All right. Scott, you'd note that?
Okay.
Thank you.
And I would also just say that I think Roger and I agree, the majority of the data that will really keep this database fresh is going to come from our own capital projects. And we've already started implementing that. All of our bids that go out that have utility work in them have a requirement for electronic as-built, so that will already work itself into the system, but this will just catch anything else that's coming in outside of our right-of-way. So progress. Item D is the floodproofing upgrades at this building. Last meeting I reported we received bids that exceeded our funding from FEMA. We had a conference call with FEMA and the New Jersey Office of Emergency Management. It's heading in the right direction. They asked us to submit some documentation, which we did. It's under review, and the expectation is that they would come back and fund the balance of the project. So that is a pending item, but at this point, the ball's in their court. And of course, we are on a timeline because the bids, we've got 60 days from when those bids were received.
All right, so for the benefit of the commissioners, even though we're getting funding from the federal government apparently for the extra amount, we still have to fund the full thing up front. So sometimes when we say that we have extra money left in an ordinance or something, this is the way we would be doing that, but we would ultimately get that money back from the
As a reimbursement. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. So we'll keep Lisa in the loop on that when we hear back from them on the information we sent. Item E is our beach and dune permit renewal. This item is still on the clock. It's due back from DEP on November 4th. Item F is the road diet. We're putting together our public presentation information. I will be reaching out to Kelly to get something lined up to do a public outreach on the road diet for Atlantic Avenue. We distributed our report at the last meeting, so by the next meeting, I think we should be a little further along on a tentative, at least a tentative format, and maybe the time of year we're looking to do this presentation for the road diet on Atlantic Avenue. Item G is the grant work we're doing for the Adams Avenue Pump Station. We're working with Rattel Associates on that. We've been giving them information as it's completed, and we will get him the information he needs for his application submission in November. Item H is, go ahead, Rich.
I have a question on that. We spoke about that this morning at a capital meeting that we had. Is there, other than seeking the grant at this point, is there any immediate need for funding for any other preliminary work that you might be doing that you know of?
Yes, so this year, when we did our budgeting for this year, we had a proposal that we sent in that included the next step in the engineering process. And that was under consideration for this year's budget, but I think what we ended up doing was concurrently, Jim came in with his need to do this other work, so I think we put off that next engineering step for this grant work. So I can just dust off that proposal and get that information.
If you'd renew it and
Yep.
review it and
Yep.
renew a timeline on what you have to do would help us as
Yep.
we're analyzing a lot of our capital, which I would say later in the meeting, but in general, we're analyzing all of our capital now with the idea of canceling some of the balances from past ordinances, but we don't want to cancel balances that
Right.
we have projects that we
Yep,
need. So,
will do.
okay.
And Commissioner Amadeo reached out to me this week or last week, and we are updating our overall list that we use for budgeting, so that's being updated, and we'll have that available too. Okay, item H will be a 2021 budget item. This is the report that needs to be prepared as a follow-up to the Water Quality Accountability Act, the asset management plan that we did last year. This is due in June of '21, so what we'll do, Rich, is we'll just take the proposal again, and we'll just update it and send it off so you have it. Item I is the Benson Avenue tank, the interior painting. This job is advertised today for bids. We're opening, actually I don't have the bid opening written down here, but we're opening with an anticipated award on November 19th, so the second meeting in November. So that project's now out to bid. The Amherst Avenue Promenade project has been out to bid since September 24th. We've got, as of this morning, we have 7 bidders that have picked up, which is great. So we're getting a lot of interest in that project. And I think even more importantly, we're getting a lot of questions from the bidders, which means that they're really taking a close look at the bid documents, which is good. That helps flush out any questions or anything that's unclear, eliminates potential issues down the road once you award the contract. There's an addendum going out this afternoon or tomorrow morning to answer those questions, and we're still on track to open bids October 28th and award at the first meeting in November, so long as everything is in order and on budget. So good movement on that bid. Item K, there's really no update on the Army Corps side of things as far as the beach bolts and the like. Moving into our construction projects, item L, like I said at the past couple meetings, we've got our maintenance bonds caught up. We've only got one coming due in February. The Safe Routes School program is closed out from a contract standpoint. It's now just getting the federal closeout process completed. We've submitted our paperwork to DOT. They then submit it to the feds, and hopefully everything gets buttoned up and closed out. Item N is last year's Atlantic Avenue project, which I talked to my guys this week. They did say that a lot of the minor punch list work's been completed on that. There is one item left with grouting a pipe that they're working. Again, this is the same contractor that we have out there this year from last year. I told them we can't just have this sit open until that job's finished. We want to get this off the books. So we'll try to get that punch list cleaned up and closed out. Item O is really Bayshore Drive West. So the contractor did some test pits out there a week or so ago. And we're now taking a look to see if there's a way we can raise the sanitary sewer pipes that are going in with the idea of pulling it up out of the groundwater and reducing the amount of dewatering we have to do on that street, which is driving the disruption to that neighborhood. So by the next meeting, we should have an answer on this one to get this thing moving. We've just been putting in the extra effort to try to make it a little more convenient for the people that live on that cul-de-sac there. Item P is the bulkhead, which is essentially complete. We just had a little bit of electrical work that needed to be coordinated with the final Ponzio plans on the promenade. So that should be coming to an end shortly. Item Q is the current phase of Atlantic Avenue, which is in construction. Concrete work has started. Ferriazzi's out there on the bay side of Atlantic Avenue working. Item R is well 10. This project has started construction. The pump's been removed. A video inspection of the well has been completed. Sub-project's moving along with a completion date of November 15th. Argyle Avenue, material has been delivered and the work is in process as well on Argyle Avenue. This is our bulkhead cut through for fiscal year 2019. That job also has a mid-November completion. This should be out of there before then. Item T is Amherst Avenue, which we just issued a notice to proceed on, effective October 26th. This has a completion date of May 24th, but that includes essentially 4 months of work, a 60-day settlement period, and then a 30-day final paving period for them to wrap up final paving before the summer season. And then the last item is the curb and gutter program, just waiting on the contracts to come back from the contractor, and then we can get that project moving as well. So, again, a lot going on. More and more projects are moving from the engineering list to the construction list, and we'll keep it moving. That's it.
Any questions for Mr. Dennis while we have time? John?
I'm good.
Okay. Item D2, the ordinance update, Mr. Abbott, that's,
Mr. Mayor, at the direction of Commissioner Amadeo, and with the help of our construction official, Jimmy Galantino, and Roger, what is your title, Roger? Zoning officer?
City planner.
Head bottle washer, everything. We have put together a vibration ordinance to deal with some of the problems that have become apparent when they're driving piling within our city. So I have drafted ordinance number 11 of 2020 that deals with it. And the primary aspects of this ordinance is that we compel them to make sure there's an insurance certificate, that we have the ability to contact the insurance company. We prohibit pile driving between 7 at night to 7 in the morning. And the biggie is we have a vibration monitoring requirement so that whenever they're driving, there are standards that they can, it's something actually past my comprehension, but particle velocity, it's in there. The engineers have come up with how they measure vibration. Now, it's been pointed out to me, and I have been considering this, do we want to compel monitoring for bulkheads? It's one thing a foundation takes about a day or two for them to put their foundation piling in. Now you get into a bulkhead job, and this is in our bulkhead ordinance section, it's being amended. Sometimes those bulkhead jobs go many weeks. And from what I understand, it costs about anywhere from $600 to $1,000 a day to have a person there, as we require, to monitor that vibration. So we might want to tweak this ordinance a little bit. Maybe Roger or Jimmy might have some further input on that. I mean, like for instance, when we built our bulkhead along Amherst Avenue, that actually took months. Mm-hmm. Would we have a monitor there every day, and that added cost? We've got a lot of bulkheads in Margate. It's not directed to docks. We're not requiring for docks because they have the water in the area. And I think, John, our concern was really the house foundations. But then you get a bulkhead, and maybe they're putting dead men behind it, or I don't know. I don't have a clear answer.
Scott, they're not driving a hammer on top of the pile on the bulkhead.
I don't know what they're doing.
He's not on record.
Jim? Jim, come up to the microphone, please.
Yeah, I look.
I mean, Roger will agree with this. We talked about this in length.
Good.
They jet the piles in at the bulkhead.
Would you state your name and address, please?
Jim Galantino, 9001 Winchester Avenue.
Good answer.
Scott,
when they put the bulkheads in, they take the pile, they jet the hole, they got a long jet that goes down, then they
Sure.
follow through with the piling, then they take the bucket, and they force it down, and it's done. No hammer. This is about hammering the bulkhead into the ground next to the adjoining property. I think you're just putting apples and oranges together. Just leave it like it is, it's fine. If you want to talk to Roger about it later, I think he agrees with me on the bulkheads.
Yeah, Scott, basically, we're agreeing with your concept. The fact is, would we want to put in a residential area for the monitoring? Even though bulkheads are in residential areas, maybe we could specify a distance of 100 foot.
Well, do we really want to include bulkheads at all?
Pardon me?
It's in there now. For all bulkheads. The way it's written, it's all bulkheads.
All bulkheads, yeah.
My understanding and having watched, in fact, as many years ago, I used to work for a contractor, we drove piling after you jetted them in. We pounded them in. Now, I admit, helical pilings, we're not worrying about helicals. We're worried about the pounding. And, if one say, well, should we exclude bulkheads? But there are situations in bulkheads where they are putting piling in the ground. And I know Jimmy knows what he's talking about, but I've seen it with my eyes where they're driving them. So I say let's introduce this, let's get some more input, we'll talk about it. If we have to tweak it, we can do that. But I don't think, we certainly don't want a homeowner to have to pay for a monitor. Let's say it's a 2-week job to put a length of
Jimmy?
60-foot bulkhead in.
Jim?
Jim,
Uh,
take it outside. Thank you.
And what we could do is somehow tweak this so we don't, because I don't want to see a homeowner's, yeah, I know you don't, not many
No.
thousands
No.
of dollars
In this
on a monitor.
conversation, because you have good input for it.
So, how do you want to proceed here?
So, Roger, you heard what Jimmy said. In a situation where a bulkhead, 9 out of 10 times, there is no impact or vibratory. They're usually jetted in, and I agree with that. In not all cases, like on our bulkhead, everything was driven to the specs of the engineer because it was supporting a roadway, et cetera, probably.
It was
parking.
driven, right?
Yeah, everything was driven. How do you think the best way to approach it? Because I agree with Scott. If you have a project that's gonna go for 2 months, like 100 foot of residential bulkhead,
That's not fair.
and to have it monitored, we're putting undue cost back on the homeowner, basically, because the homeowner's responsible for that.
I agree with that. Sewell, 22 West Drive.
That's Roger.
The ordinance as presented it's in the bulkhead ordinance. I had an issue with keeping it in the bulkhead. It should be a standalone construction
Right,
for foundation pilings. I added the terms in there, foundation pilings, because I thought that was the issue.
yeah.
That is the issue, right.
Right, so I don't know why
think
we
if
have.
Keep it at foundation pile, that excludes, and you take it out of the section that has bulkheads, and you put it in under building construction foundations, that where piling are needed, you would need a pile monitor with a seismograph to monitor the pressure that's going into the ground.
So exclude bulkheads?
Yeah.
Okay, can we exclude bulkheads unless they're gonna drive them? I mean, in bulkheads, any places, not,
Well, they install bulkhead pilings in 3 different ways. It's a hammer, drop hammer, it's a vibratory hammer, or sometimes if they're short pilings, they use the backhoe and they bang it in with the backhoe, if they're not trying to get tonnage. And also they have the air hammer. So I would have an issue with a homeowner with 40 foot of piling for a bulkhead, having to spend an extra $1,000 a day to monitor it. I think that's unfair. But for a foundation piling, when they're 10 feet away from the neighbor's foundation,
And
I
it's
think
only a
that's the
day or
issue.
two. That's acceptable, but not if it's 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I don't really know what the answer is. Yeah.
Yeah, put it specifically for residential foundation piling.
Right, so it should be removed from the bulkhead ordinance. We'll find another home for it. We'll re-examine that text and the language
All right.
next week.
All right.
I'm fine with that.
So my question is, do we introduce that or wait for the changes and introduce it at the next meeting?
I would, I want to introduce it and get it done, but I'm going to have to word this to take out references to bulkheads. So, let's do it to the
let's
next.
table it.
What do you want?
What's that?
I think wait till the next meeting. Let me,
Okay, good.
because we reference bulkheads throughout here. I don't want to, it's important.
Okay with
I want to
that?
get it right.
Absolutely.
Fine, that's fine. Johanna will take that
All right,
off
very good.
the
Thank you.
agenda, please.
I think that's it for me.
Thank you. No. No comment on this, Joan. At the,
Well, we have another ordinance update too on
when,
the land
when it
use.
becomes, approved before that meeting, which will probably be two more meetings before we get to that. It'll be introduced at the next meeting and then voted on the following meeting, okay?
Uh,
No, not proper now, Jan.
You want to do the land use? Roger, do you want to comment on the land use? We drafted the changes. I think our planning board has reviewed these, or will review them shortly.
They've reviewed it for the most part. Of course, it has to go back to them for consistency review.
Right.
Back to the governing body for adoption. So, in a nutshell, where is it in here?
But we would like to have this introduced tonight, and move this forward. And I think we're in pretty good shape. If the planning board sees something they want to change, or Roger, you come up with something else, we can tweak it.
There's
I think
always-
we're good to go on this.
Well, Roger, can you bring us up to date on the tree part of the changes to this land use ordinance? I've read what's in here. It doesn't have the distance that I saw in an email that was going,
that was a recommended distance from some other towns. What we have here in Margate, we have majority of 40-foot wide lots.
right,
18 of that is, or 18 or 10 foot of that is a driveway. The other 9 feet is utility. There's not a whole lot of room for 2 trees, let alone 3. So the idea is you don't want a tree 10 feet away from a neighbor's tree at the property line. So that was just a recommendation of spacing. We have recommendations and requirements to keep the trees away from corners and stop signs and that sort. But in our ordinance, the only requirement for a tree in the governorship is for a development, whether it comes through zoning or through the planning board, they have to maintain a tree for 2 years. After that, they can cut it down, it can blow down, nothing happens. So the board wants, based on the forestry management plan, as an excerpt from that, is to, if you have a tree in a governorship and you cut it down or remove it for whatever reason, disease, falls over in a storm, you have to replace it. There is talk of, assessing fines and penalties and requiring permits. I think that's just going to deter people, and we're going to clog up the court with people not putting trees in. And also, people's private properties, we're not monitoring and maintaining, requiring trees be maintained on people's properties, other than the required shrubs and trees that they have for, to get zoning approval and planning board approval.
well, currently, we have a couple issues that are pending within the city itself, where we have our right-of-ways and backyards of stretches of streets that, that the high-tension wires, the wires that feed the power to the houses, we have a lot of overgrown trees because people are not maintaining them. And we have problems with other neighbors complaining, because it does become an issue if wires get knocked down from a limb breaking off, et cetera. So, I mean, those are the things we should be looking at to put more teeth in the ordinance, to be able to monitor that and make sure that those trees are maintained. And most of them have been there for a lot of time. If we go back to what you started with, I got a little off track. The Governor Strip in a lot of parts of our city is only 2 foot wide.
sometimes less than that.
And yeah, and like you said, we have water and sewer boxes in those curb strips that are closed. And the first thing you do is you plant a tree and the roots are growing towards where the moisture is, which causes problems in the future, maybe 20, 30 years down the road. With that said, I know you, the way this is written, you have the authority to cause the placement of where you feel is best for that tree.
Correct.
And if you see fit, we could still stay with 2 trees.
Correct. There's been instances where I had to eliminate a tree. It wouldn't fit.
So could they do in-kind somewhere else on their property? Because the object is to bring more trees on board, especially after the last storm we lost. Someone told me, they gave me the count, Frank would know it off the top of his head. How many trees did we lose in the city of Margate? Couple hundred?
Maybe not that much, but yeah, a lot, especially on private property.
Yeah. I'm just making a suggestion.
Some people, if it's a homeowner that's redeveloping the house, they do put the tree somewhere else on the property. If it's a builder special, nah, that's not gonna happen. But there are a lot of people around town are just, after 2 years are up, they're just removing these trees, and I think we need to try to stop that.
Roger, you've recommended that they put the tree on the other side of the sidewalk. That's already happening, and that's great. There's no room in the government.
Correct.
He does do that.
Okay.
But I just wanted to put it in writing in here. I mean, today I did 3 inspections, and there's a 4-foot wide governor strip, but there wasn't room for the trees because there was a electrical pull box, water, sewer, gas, so they put it behind. Then there was another one today that the governor strip was a foot wide, and they shoved 2 trees in there. This time next year, those sidewalks are gonna be heaving, so.
It's a double-edged sword.
Any more discussion on the remainder of the ordinance, or are we all right with that?
As I looked at it, I was very satisfied, because these conversations have been going on for probably the better part of a year with the planning board and yourself and myself, looking at the best way to relieve the burden on the planning board, where most of these requests for variances were being granted anyway, correct?
Correct, yes. And we have some ideas in the future too, but after our year-end report comes out in hopefully January, we can move along some more zoning ordinances in the springtime. But we add a bunch of definitions in here that, we use the language in the ordinance but don't reference the definition, so we kind of clarified a lot of things. The biggest item in here is allow third-floor decks throughout the city, provided they meet the design standards. They have to be inset the building envelope. Except on the beachfront, they're allowed to be within the deck setback. And that's pretty much
And am I right, they're not allowed to be in the rear yard?
third-floor deck.
Yeah,
If it's in the building envelope, it could be either building or deck.
okay.
Most people probably would want it in the front. The only place it would be in the rear would be on the bayfront property.
Right.
But that's, the other item that I finally got going on this is the front yard setback. As you know, Margate uses a prevailing setback for all front yards for porches and homes. It's hit or miss. It's a moving target. I can't answer a question if somebody calls up, what's a front yard setback? You have to go measure everyone within 200 feet. And it changes day by day with all the construction going on. So I started off with Quincy Avenue and Ventnor Avenue in the Parkway section, depending what zone you're in. We have a standard number now. There's no question about it. A lot of people seem to be happy about that. I want to do it citywide, but again, I don't want to cause more damage than good by making everybody non-compliant versus where it should be. That's it.
So we're clear on the process.
It goes back to the
We'd
planning.
introduce this, it goes back to the planning board, I see Mr. Patterson's here tonight, and then the planning board makes their final comments and recommendations, and then comes back to us.
For consistency with the master plan.
Cool. All right, you good?
Yes.
You good?
I'm good.
I'm good. Okay. Just take a second. Mrs. Naden, I think I may have misled you. you can speak at the next meeting at the first public comment session. You can talk about anything you want at that one. Okay? Cool. All right, where are we? Who else?
No, this is,
There's a public comment at the end of this meeting for items that are on the agenda, which this was.
okay,
Or that was discussed.
right.
Any other business? Anybody have any comments?
Yeah, I do. I had spoken with Rich earlier today, and as long as we're talking about ordinances, I think we have to revisit our outside dining ordinance for the year 2021. So I think a conversation should happen through the course of a few meetings discussing the possibility. I know this year was a unique year, and let's hope that this is the only unique year that COVID still exists, that the Liquor Control Board allowed for expansion of liquor licenses, which helped all our restaurants be able to expand and serve in public areas. If we go back to the normal time, and the chief could probably answer questions on this, we did have an ordinance that did allow, with exceptions like removing tables and chairs from within the right-of-way, our vendors, our restaurants would have to store them, out of sight and things of that nature. I think that the outside dining this year was very promising, and it was a very good part of our town, that we should, have some comments and thoughts all put together and revisit our existing outside dining ordinance and hope that this continues to grow. And again, it all is guided by the expansion licenses with the Liquor Control Board. So that's just a comment I have.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll second that too, because I want to point out that, and I guess we realize this, they're talking about something like 40% of small restaurants in the country folding up permanently. So what we did, and with the help of the ABC, we greatly helped our restaurants and bars. I know some people felt they were inconvenienced, they didn't like it, but we're trying to have these establishments survive and get through this, which I think it has. So yeah, I mean, very interested in trying to come up with an ordinance that continues to allow some outdoor dining so these restaurants and bars can continue to survive. They make our city so unique. No, nobody has restaurants like Margate does, really. We've got the best, I think, on the Jersey coast, really, but that comment. The other comment is, and I saw Commissioner Amadeo this morning down there with the Scarborough dredging of the water park. You want to see a clean operation and see how dredging can be done. No mess in the street, rapid session. He's using 6 trucks. They minimize it, the interference. I don't really see any problem with allowing them going forward. And again, it's another important step forward for our waterfront area. We're going to get that area dredged out, which benefits the other properties as well, because when you take that out, it helps the marinas, it helps the other boat slips. Clearly it does. And now we're going to move forward with our promenade construction. And of course, now the appellate court upheld our decision with the development for Captain Andy's. That's another big step forward, trying to get everybody squared away there. A lot of people have asked about Lombardi's. I understand that Mr. Lombardi has been in the hospital. He's been
Yeah,
hospitalized.
I spoke to him yesterday.
That he's, so he has a health issue going on there. I think that's part of the reason you're not seeing much activity there, unfortunately. And give him his best. I hope he does well with that. But we're moving forward now. And Scarborough's going to be down there for another 2 weeks, maybe, Rich, 2 weeks. He's going to have 6 trucks. He gave me a schedule. He's talking about how they go in and out. They take it out to Corbin City. So it's
a nice operation.
It's a great operation, and our waterfront is really starting to shape up.
Cool. I agree with Scott 100%. We, looking back, we created that ordinance. It was a survival ordinance. I think all of us wanted to make sure that our restaurants especially had an opportunity to survive the COVID problem. And I think we should look at that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, one thing that always sticks in my mind, Mayor, is the comment that Mr. Deeney said to me 2 years ago. it makes the city look alive in the summer.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely. Cool, cool. All right. Anything else? Are any department heads? Chief? Chief Matt?
Quickly, Mayor. Came out yesterday regarding Halloween. We posted the hours on the city website to participate, for lack of a better word, in Halloween trick-or-treating activities. We have referenced the State Department of Health guidelines and everything that the governor has said in his guidelines. So it will be 6 to 8 p.m. on October 31st. All the social distancing guidelines, all the guidelines from the state have been well published. I think it's a good event, it'll be a good night, and like we put out on our Facebook page, for those people who don't want to participate, that's fine also. Like I said, it's enumerated the best way to do it, and hopefully we can do it safely and have something for the kids to do that night for a few hours. We will be out there in full force like we are every year, making sure everybody's safe, but I do think it's a good night.
Good job.
Good job, Dan. Lisa, you have anything to report?
Not at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
I'm good, Mayor, thank you.
Frank?
Yeah, I do have something. Today, with Lafayette working on Atlantic Avenue, they've been turning water off and on. There actually was a break in one of the mains, and it's stirring everybody's water up. In a couple weeks, we are going to start flushing, but we want to move it up to Monday, the 19th. So those people up there, we can flush their system and try to clear the water up, which it will, once we start
Right.
flushing.
You
And,
want to put it on the website?
phone blast works better than anything,
All right.
but I know Joanna publishes it in the paper, the local paper, so we'd appreciate that, even if it only gets in by Tuesday or Wednesday. At least it's in there.
You mean the net?
Yeah, that. Yeah, we're doing it for the whole week.
Week, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just gonna be a regular flush. for
So you'll do the whole
city.
city beyond the north end? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Good.
I mean, things are going smooth up there, but it's just a disturbance in the water.
Okay. Anything else, Frank?
No, that's it.
Fred?
Just happy to be here, Mayor.
Glad you're here too. Andrew?
Yeah, we're going to be opening the Bloom Pavilion November 9th. I met with Dan and Fred about requirements and how we're going to do it. We're going to have 2 different shifts, a morning shift and an afternoon shift. So we have time in between to clean. We'll have, all the indoor requirements with the questionnaire and the temperature taking. So we're going to start to try. They've been outside playing cards and doing bingo and exercise and things for the last few months. So we're going to try and take them inside. Exercise we're not going to do yet because we don't want to have the seniors in masks indoors exercising. So we're going to try and stay outside as long as we can. Hopefully the weather stays nice for a while.
Good job.
It's
Good job, Andrew.
very good plan. A lot of people put time in, and I want to thank Fred and Dan and the staff up at the Bloom Pavilion. They revised their plan. You have to register in advance. I mean, there is some inconvenience, but we're talking about safety, and you're limiting it to, I believe, 24 people, if that's right, Andrew.
24 upstairs, 8 down.
24 at one time would be the maximum, up on 2 different floors. So there'll be limited interaction. They have to bring their own
Food.
game materials. There's no game materials supplied, so it's not going to be shared by all the different people.
No food, right?
No food.
So the
exactly.
famous bagel quote, we don't have to answer that question, that they pay for their bagels?
What? How much should you pay for bagels? Anyhow, anybody have anything else? Okay, let's move on. Public comment. Joan, do you have a comment?
Sure.
Come on up, Joan. State your name and address, please.
Joan Naden, 8 North Quincy Avenue. I made copies of the proposed ordinance, and in reading over it, I'm no lawyer, but I'm not sure it would have covered my situation and what occurred to me with this pile driving. It talks about, in the future, property owners of contiguous properties have to be notified. How contiguous? Immediately contiguous?
Yeah,
Two
either side of, and behind.
That wouldn't have covered me. I'm 2 houses away and I was damaged.
That's right, you wouldn't have gotten a certified letter, your neighbors would have though. But we also have them posting a sign that says they're gonna do pile driving.
Right, so it's only as far as notification is concerned. Who would damages apply to? Do you have to be contiguous in order for
Well,
the damage?
I don't think it says that, Joan. Am I correct?
But-
That's for
They
notification.
have to post it, they have to give us insurance information, so you'll know who their insurance carrier is right away.
And that's another question that I had. I wasn't sure if you're
Plus,
going
they
to,
have to post a sign, so although you didn't get a letter because you're not immediately next door to them, but your neighbors would, but if you go down your street, you'd see the sign posted, at least 18 inches, and posted a separate phone number, so you'll see, you'll know it's coming. Plus, they have to do the monitoring, and they have to give us, the city, a copy of that, so you'll have proof if there was excessive vibration that harmed your home.
that's all excellent. I thank you for that.
In fact, I think what we're gonna do is change the caption of this ordinance. We'll call it the Jane Nadler vibration.
Joan Naden, is that?
Jane, I'm sorry. I got it wrong. That way. But no, I mean, this was to address what you raised. And, you know, if you have any suggestions, we're gonna be still tweaking this a bit, whatever you feel.
Okay.
You wanna expand it for more than, I think we're pretty good here.
I think having the insurance
Yeah.
piece in here, an insurance certificate to prove that they're covered, working in the city of Margate, is a benefit, and that would be posted in the building department in their jacket of their, what do you call it, the jacket for the building jacket.
And that's specifically for pile drivers, not for the overall construction company.
That's something else. But we're lucky our construction officials here. Do they give you that I'm sorry, Mayor. Is that something you have on record?
The information they provide is the information that the company that's driving the pile. Right now, we have only the pile driver's permit, that's it.
But how about the contractor? They carry liability. That's with the state. They have to. It's a
Yeah, the
law.
contractor, the home builder doesn't carry any insurance. He only has the home builder's warranty. We took that up with the state, and they said that's on the contractor in the state level. We would like to see them carry insurance, but that's a whole nother animal. Anyway, I was keeping my peace of mind, but I really think that we should keep it in the bulkheads, because we have the driving of the sheet pile, which vibrates the houses next door, and we also have pile driving for decks, and we have the dead men that go into for the bulkheads. We have the davits for the boats. All these are in the bulkhead. These all shake the property. I don't know why we have to go back and revisit this. I mean, I worked all the quirks out. I mean,
Except the cost to the homeowner.
but you're narrowed it down to pile driving for foundations.
Because
They,
that was the
they drive pile for everything, for decks. There are a number of things that are in this. I think you just can't narrow it down to one specific item. I mean, we can hash this out privately, but, you know, I don't see why we have to dead the ordinance tonight.
It just seems to me that you have a homeowner gonna put in a 60-foot bulkhead, that's gonna take, what, 3 weeks?
Right, and if they do it on the
So
beach,
you're gonna take that cost up another $10,000-$15,000 monitoring vibrations.
but if you're doing a 60-foot bulkhead on the beach and you're bringing it on landward side, you're driving pile on that property for a bulkhead.
Well, look, it's up to the government. All I can tell you is, there are no other towns that have this. We're the first. It is an added expense. It's not cheap to have that fellow there every day with a monitoring device. And we got a lot of bulkheads in this town. How many problems of liability have we had with our bulkheads that have been replaced? I'm not aware of any real problem there. The only one I'm aware of is once in a while foundation plan. With bulkheads, as they build them from the water, it seems to be a different creature, Jay. I'm not arguing with it, I'm just trying to hash it out. But is it reasonable to have a monitor every day doing a bulkhead that goes 3 weeks, three-week job, 4-week job?
You're gonna have a monitoring device there anyhow.
Jim, come to the microphone if you're going to speak, please.
You're gonna have a monitoring device, because normally 10 out of 10 times, the monitor is the pile driving engineering company. The engineer that determines the impact of the hammer on the pile is also the company that's monitoring the pile driving. They are one and the same.
They are?
Oh, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I mean,
I had to hire somebody different when I did my house.
No,
But,
I hired
but
somebody
usually they're
when I
side
did
by
mine.
side. Yeah, I'm sorry, they're side by side. So there's a monitoring driving device company there next to the guy that's
Right.
an engineer that's watching the pile driving.
Right.
Okay. What is your pleasure, folks?
Here's mine. Let's kick it around some
Okay, so
We're gonna pull it for
pull
tonight.
from the
more.
agenda.
Overnight.
Okay.
Let's see.
That- We're going to have no agenda for this. Anything else? Any other public comment?
Mayor, I have a question on that. I don't know if it would help or not.
Rich,
All right.
You're talking about pile driving as opposed to the other methods, the auger, other methods of.
Jetting,
jetting
auger.
or- So would this ordinance, if it were cost expensive like we're talking about, would it drive you to do it a different methodology? And if so, is that more or less expensive or not? Are you not able to do that? Does that play into this in any way, shape, or form? Because you're only talking about pile driving when you're driving.
That is scary, isn't it?
It's like Halloween for driving.
Roger has it.
Good point.
When you're augering or jetting a piling, you're just starting the piling. You're developing a hole to put the piling in. When you finish it, you either hammer it in or you're vibrating it in. So you would need the vibration.
if there's a
analysis.
standard, in a lot of cases, when you do a bulkhead, you just jet so that you can plumb the pile, and then you're bolting it to, a lot of times you have, your face pile and you have your back pile, and you put a straight edge. So in not all applications, in bulkheads do you dry pile.
All right, why
For the
don't,
years I've been doing it, they drive them somehow. They gotta fetch, otherwise they're gonna move, and the piling's move, the bulkhead's gonna move. So whether you're hammering it or vibrating it in, I think that ordinance is warranted.
okay, we're not going to introduce that today. We'll have 2 weeks to have a discussion on that, okay?
Scott, you're in charge on it.
Your name and address, please.
Get the boxing gloves and we'll figure it.
Richard Patterson, 8 Bay Shore Court. Well, one of Jimmy's points there, though, was if it's just a foundation, it could be the landward side. I mean, you got to include the decks and everything, so it should be at least part of the house instead of strictly the foundation, because there is a lot of pilings.
That we all agree on.
Right, I'm just saying, if it specifically says foundation, it should be added.
We're cool with that. It's the bulkhead.
Right. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel on the dredging? Well, you just said it. I didn't hear what you said. Is it really expected to come?
Great, great. We don't, it's public comment, not question and answer, but
Oh, okay.
we're going to do it for you,
I
Rich.
think I didn't hear.
Because it'll take time away
You'll
from
have
whatever we're going to
Okay,
talk
look,
about.
I'm running out of time.
Well, we have 5 minutes.
Item F, on the road diet, a public presentation is being prepared. I just asked that nobody knows what a road diet is. Before the public meeting happens, can it be evident that it means changing from 2 lanes to 1 lane? I'm not commenting on whether it's good or bad.
It will be done, absolutely,
Other than saying it's a road diet, say we'll go
Absolutely.
down to 1 lane.
absolutely.
All right. On the bureaucracy on the landscaping, most of this is done on spec builders. It's usually not the homeowners with the trees coming down. There's no teeth in here whatsoever. If it says the tree is sick, it can be removed. Well, they can remove the tree, say it was sick, and it's gone by the time anybody gets there. The only way to do it is if they have to get permission first. I just don't see any other way. And they can also tear down a giant elm or whatever they do, like they just tore down on Atlantic Avenue and Haverford, like they did on Thurlow. They could, the only remedy is they put in the twig, the 2-inch trees, the 10-foot 2-inch trees that we do. So I don't think it really means anything unless there is something there. We can't fine them $10,000. I mean, the first thing that was brought up a year ago was on private property. This is city property. So I think there needs to be some type of enforcement somehow. There's just nothing in here. It's completely toothless. And the purpose of the trees, that other thing's not before you, his spacing, so I don't want to talk about that. And I'm not a environmental fanatic. This is just, the trees is just so easy to beautify the city and to take out carbon and add oxygen. It's just the easiest thing we can do, and Margate has built up as the green city, and it's just going down the tubes. The trees are dropping right and left. And to change it after all these 100 years and say, well, now it's too small to put two trees in the governor's strip.
Thank you, Rich.
I'm not leaving.
That's your buddy, Rick.
Yeah.
That's your buddy.
There's nobody behind me.
Thank you, Rich.
To say it at the end.
Okay, we'll take that in consideration. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second?
Mayor Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo?
Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second?
Mayor Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll take a short recess and we will begin the regular public meeting.
That was an interesting meeting.